Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Corey, better known as the Seaman, and I want to welcome you to another edition of the Seaman's Cinema Sitdown, and back in for a little up-to-date Spooktober action. If you are unsure what I'm talking about, this month, October, we've been doing a little Seaman Spooktober countdown to Halloween. As you can see up on the screen, all month long I've been watching and reviewing different scary, spooky Halloween movies. So far, we've watched a total of 19, I guess 20 if you want to count it, Chapter 1 and 2, which we just watched as two separate movies, but we watched them yesterday, reviewed it earlier today to kind of get caught up, and now we get ready to dive into the 20th film on the list, and it is my favorite script of 2020. Any movie that you've seen this year. So why don't you pull up a chair, take a seat, we're getting ready to dive in to Relic. And this, before we get going, will be a spoiler-filled review. I reviewed the movie back in either late March, early April, somewhere around there. I remember it was early quarantine when it came out to rent. And I reviewed it non-spoiler. That link is down below in the description. But I want to go in spoiler here because the spoiler elements of this movie are really the thing that make it so fantastic. I didn't talk about those in the non-spoiler, but if you are unfamiliar with Relic, Relic follows a family, specifically three women of a family. The grandmother, played by Robin Nevin, Edna, her daughter, Kay, played by Emily Mortimer, and her granddaughter, Sam, played by Bella Heathcote. And essentially, Edna's gone missing. She's missing, I think, for 3 days, and Kay and Sam come up, to check on her, try to find her. And while they're trying to find her, they bring the police. They have like a big search in the woods behind the house. They can't find her, and then one night she just returns. And the rest of the movie from that point on is really trying to get to the root of what happened to her. Where did she go? What's going on? And while all this is happening, we start to see like a physical presence of kind of like a rotting on Edna's chest that is in sync and in tune to rotting that is represented in the house. And that kind of gets us into the genre element of this type of haunting movie. And director-writer Natalie Erika James does a wonderful job creating this kind of very haunting, I think is the best term to use here, of this type of a haunting story where it seems some sort of entity attached to the house has now attached itself to the grandmother. And Natalie Erika James is able to use that and the house to her advantage so much in this movie. As it slowly ramps up, I really like her style. The slow build that we kind of have in that first act until Edna shows back up, and then the slow build from Edna to what we get in the final act of the movie is really, really, really well done. You get to paint a little bit of a picture of the relationship between Kay and Sam, why they're looking for the grandmother, and different things that she kind of alludes to at night, or places where she kind of puts the camera, really play into like something might be going on. And then when the grandmother shows back up, one of the first things we see is like her daughter Kay is sleeping, and this hand just kind of creepily out of nowhere, all dirty, like kind of combs the hair behind her ear and then disappears. You wake up the next day and you're like, well, that was eerie. And that's literally when the grandmother shows back up. You hear the tea kettle going off in the morning. You're like, what in the world? And she's back. And once she comes back, those subtle little scares start to pick up a little bit in the second act. There's a wonderful scene where Emily Mortimer's character is talking to Robin Nevin, trying to get to the root of what's going on, and Edna is just out there. Anytime she kind of brings up what happened to her, she changes the conversation. And she mentions that something is under the bed. She's like, I can't go to sleep unless you check something under the bed. And, Kay gets down on the floor and is looking under, and it looks like there's like a shape. And all of a sudden, just as it like slightly starts to move, and you're like, oh shit, there is something there, Edna, for reasons unknown, throws a book on the ground that scares Kay, and like she slams her head. And those types of like little scares and uneasy things of like what is going on really, really work in the build up to the third act. And the third act, Natalie Erika James knocks it out of the ballpark. Specifically, two sections. Kay is dealing with, Edna kind of seemingly looking like she's going off the deep end. And she locks herself in the bathroom. Kay has to break in, and when she does, Edna just kind of, well, she's not unable to break in. Edna just opens the door and leaves. But you can see the rot, that little, it was like a bruise when the doctor comes and checks on her, I think, earlier in the movie. It's like spreaded, and it looks like a rot. And she just kind of starts running away from Kay. And Kay eventually chases her down, finds her in like a closet, like stabbing herself in the face with a knife. The body horror elements in the movie are so good. And they're not overly grotesque or gruesome or bloody, but if you're squeamish, this might not work for you. I mean, she turns, that night I was like, oh dear God, what is happening? And simultaneously, while all of that's going on, Sam is investigating a noise that we've heard in the house several times. And she goes into this closet where her neighbor, a Down syndrome boy named Jamie, used to come over and kind of check on Edna, and Edna locked him in there. So there's like claw marks and stuff, and forgets about him. And Sam starts exploring, and you're seeing all of these elements of the house or different post-its that she leaves, like, my name is Edna, my mother had green eyes, because she's clearly starting to forget things. And as she's kind of wandering through, she starts hearing those noises, getting closer, and she starts freaking out, goes to leave, and the whole way she came back changes. Like, she hits a wall, and then she goes another way, hits another wall. And this impending, slow, claustrophobic closing of this, like, closeted hallway type room gets, literally, physically shrinks, and she has to burst through the ceiling. And then that all leads to the end where things get real crazy, man. Like, Edna is literally falling apart. Her legs and limbs are breaking, which creates some really creepy chase sequences. And they end up having like a full-blown fight, which really deforms Edna a lot. And, Kay and Sam try to leave. They're literally like, this is not your grandmother anymore. Let's get out of here. And right as they're leaving, Sam is literally out the house, and Kay hears Edna say her name, and she turns. And, there's a cleverly placed post-it that's right there that says, I am loved. And this look in Kay's face of just heartbreak, like, this is still my mom, even though it's not. Like, whatever this entity is that's taken her over, she's still in there somewhere. And she carries her to bed and then proceeds to, spoilers, peel her skin off to reveal this black, like, charcoal-y colored version of her mom. And the movie ends with her kind of laying down with her mother, and then Sam finally coming back and crawling into bed also, and then seeing that rot is on Kay. And just from a physical standpoint, the production of all of that stuff is unbelievable. It looks and works so well. It builds the tension. The scoring during that sequence certainly gets you like, what is going on? And the execution of all the kind of haunting elements are wonderful. But the end on that surface kind of leaves you scratching your head unless you've been paying attention. And that's where the script kicks in. And like I said, this is my favorite script of the entire year. What Natalie Erika James and co-writer Christian White do here is just phenomenal, because when you look at the movie as a allegory for dementia, genius stuff is going on here, because essentially what we get is this story about an elderly lady who is suffering from dementia, and specifically it seems to be Alzheimer's related, as she's starting to really lose her memory and she's forgetting things. There are elements of like somebody's breaking into the house, and it's because Edna will leave doors open or move furniture and forget that she did any of it. And the movie takes on this idea of what dementia does both to a family and to the person affected by dementia, but puts it through this prism of a haunting ghost story. And it works so well because dementia is real life horror, and to a degree is a monster that you can't stop. Edna several times in the movie, she says like it's under the bed. Toward the end of the movie, Kay finds her out in the like forest in the woods, eating pictures and then burying a photo album. And Edna kind of talks about how like she's basically doing that because she doesn't want this thing to get them. Like, they'll be safe out here. It won't be able to touch them. And she kind of talks about how she's just constantly afraid it's going to just take over. And she won't see it coming, and it'll just be done like that. And she's talking specifically about dementia in that conversation, and like the idea of trying to bury her memories somewhere where dementia can't touch them, where they'll be safe, where she'll be able to always go back and find them when she can. It's really heartbreaking stuff in this movie. And when you get to the end and all that crazy stuff that's going on, the entire journey of Sam trapped in that this massive closet is basically like she's been locked inside Edna's mind. All sorts of things in the closet obviously are Edna. She has the post-its, that says like, my name is Edna, my mother had green eyes. And as she goes deeper into her mind trying to get back out, she can't. And it's like a physical embodiment of what goes on inside a dementia patient's mind, and how the whole idea of like just getting lost inside your house because you can't remember how to get out, and how frustrating and scary that starts to be. And as that frustration and scariness builds, everything closes in on you, and then that claustrophobic feeling kind of pours in. And for me, watching that whole sequence, specifically the second time around watching the movie, you really get a sense of like, this is what's going on inside Edna's brain. And then physically, the chase between Kay and Edna is the dementia taking over, and Edna completely disappearing. She is a completely different person, and that's the battle. That dementia is this monster that eventually can take you completely over. And the frustration angle of the family, the whole build-up, that first two acts, like, oh, she's forgetting things. Should we put her in a home? Should she move in with me? Should I come and live here with her? And that frustration, and then that realization that the person that you know and that you love and that you've cared for is no longer that person, is represented physically at the end of the movie, where Kay and Sam are going to leave and just leave Edna behind, and she'll die and she'll rot into the ground the same way her father did. You watch that like heartbreakingly, specifically the second time when you know what's going on. The first time, for me at least, it didn't really completely click until the movie was over, and then I was like, whoa. And now watching it, you kind of see things differently, and it's when her mom says her name, that one moment of lucidness that a full-blown dementia patient might have, occasionally, where they'll remember everything that's going on for a brief moment. That moment hits Kay like a ton of bricks, where she's like, this person isn't my mother, but my mother's still in there. And when she carries her back and peels off her skin, it's that acceptance moment of, I understand that you're gone, mostly, but I'm still here for you, and I'm still going to take care of you. And when Sam crawls into bed and sees that spot on her mother, that's what makes me go Alzheimer's, because Alzheimer's, about 40 to 60% of Alzheimer's cases are genetic. It has to do with a specific genetic mutation that can be passed down hereditarily. And the idea that watching your mother go through this, that it's probably going to be you at some point toward the end of your life. Very much how Edna was worried about what happened to her dad was going to happen to her. And it is just a beautifully written movie. Like, it is a haunting, chilling, eerie, heartbreaking kind of a film. That's just beautiful. I mean, watching it that second time, that scene where Emily Mortimer peels off all the skin of her mom to reveal this ashy, coal-looking version of her is hauntingly beautiful. And the performances that we get from Mortimer, Nevin, and Heathcote are just tremendous. They really feel like a family. You can feel that tension between Sam and Kay. Sam refers to her mother as Kay quite often. So you can understand that there's some sort of rift there. And that's kind of heartbreaking in its own right, because there was clearly a rift between Kay and Edna, and kind of the healing of all that stuff going on in the movie. They just do an excellent job, all three of them. Specifically, not specifically, all three of them just knock it out of the ballpark. I love Heathcote during that scene in the closet. She is brilliant. And Nevin has just wonderful, chilling moments, and she really, really nails everything. And Mortimer does a really good job balancing everything that's going on in the movie. Like, she is the even though her mother is still alive, she's essentially the matriarch of the family. She's the overseer, and she hasn't necessarily been that. So she kind of tries to find her way back to her daughter and her mother simultaneously. She just nails all of the things that she's asked to do, and for me, this is one of my favorite movies of the year. It's one of the best horror movies I've seen recently. And like I said, in 2020, it is my favorite script of the year. I hope that people remember it come awards time, because I think it'll be a legitimate contender for original screenplay, because it's a wonderfully haunting allegory. Like, to look dementia through this prism just fits so perfectly, and the movie, I think, is just a knockout. So there you go, man. Those are all the Seaman's spoiler thoughts on Relic, one of my favorite movies of the year. Why it is on this list is because I want people to watch this movie and more people to know and speak up about how great this movie is. I really, really, absolutely loved it. Like I said, the writing is just... And the ghost story, stuff works really, really well in the movie. So those are all my thoughts. Now I want to know what you're thinking. If you had a chance to check out Relic, do you think it's one of the best movies of the year? If you have, where does it fall in your rankings? How good did you think the script is? Or am I over the top? If you didn't like it at all or haven't seen it, why didn't you like it? And do you think you might want to see it after listening to the old Seaman? Have we enticed you to check out Relic? Anything you're thinking, good, bad, indifferent about Relic, down below in the comments section. Look forward to talking to you down there. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you're new, you want to come hang out with the Seaman the rest of Spooktober, or just any time we're talking TVs, movie, reactions to trailers, and you haven't, come join the Seamaniacs by jumping over there. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that little bell if you want those alerts. And until next time, for the Seaman Cinema Sit Down, caught back up on his Spooktober. I have, of course, been the Seaman. I'm signing off. Peace! You guys are still here? You must be looking for some more content. Well, don't worry. Seaman's got you covered, man. You got videos like this guy and this guy. And if you haven't yet, and you want to come check out all the Seaman goodies, join the Cinema Sit Down squad, man. Hit that subscribe button. And don't forget to hit the little bell down below that, too, so you can get alerts every time I make new videos.